Hello and welcome to the first installment of the Simpson College Faculty Showcase lecture series. This four-part series features current faculty members sharing their expertise on a variety of interesting topics. Today, we are fortunate to have Dr. Ryan Rehmeier, Professor and Department Chair of Biology, and his wife, Tara, Assistant Director of Athletics with us. I will now turn over the lecture to Ryan and Tara. Thank you both very much for being part of this series.
Well, welcome. Thank you very much for inviting us, Andy. We're both really excited to be here, right, Tara?
So excited.
So excited. Well, I will say that what we're going to be talking about is not what I would have originally chosen. Andy suggested something, and I have no creativity. And so here we are with the topic of today, which is going to be about what has become a really important part of my life. So I was glad to hear as some people were signing up for this that they had not heard that I did this sort of thing, which is a real compliment because the old adage is that if you, how do you know if someone's done an Ironman? Like, don't worry, they'll tell you about it. So I'm glad that I haven't totally done that to a lot of you. I'm also going to warn you that this will probably be a different presentation than you're going to see for the next few people with expertise in things like history and biodesign and religion. And so this is going to be a bit more of just a story about sort of what we've been doing the last couple decades, I guess. We're going to set the bar really low for this showcase, and I at least brought my we're the only team presenting, I think, and so brought my better half here to
keep him honest.
Up the quality. Yep, for sure. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint here because I'm a professor, so I got to have a PowerPoint as we work through this. But this is our talk about sort of what we've been doing. So. To talk about sort of where this all began, back in 2001, I was just wrapped up my master's. We were living in Kansas in Manhattan, and like a dummy, one October, I guess I should say, I saw the Ironman triathlon on NBC, and they have this 2-hour show, and it mostly talks about cool stories, inspirational stories that people have about doing this thing, and thought, well, that's pretty awesome, but I knew I couldn't do anything like that. So I signed up for my first triathlon. And that was called the Summer Sizzler, and it was a sprint triathlon, and I was perfectly happy with that. But once I signed up, I realized that I didn't know how to do 2 of the 3 things that is part of a triathlon. I had no swim background at all, but you can imagine what I was going to look like if I didn't do some training. Like a nerd, or like an academic, I should say, I bought some books on it. And the best book, if you want to learn how to swim efficiently, is Total Immersion. I would highly recommend that. I read that, I learned the drills, like any natural athlete would do. I did have sort of a background in biking in that I'd done a couple MS 150s in Nebraska growing up, and I had a mountain bike. So that was my background there, but I had no run background. I did do team sports in high school, not well, but I did them, and I threw in track. So when I was in track, I was a shot putter. So you can probably imagine that because of my athletic prowess. So I had to try to get some background in this. And so I just looked wherever I could find any sort of ideas about how to do 5Ks, 10Ks, all that sort of thing. But I had no idea how to do those back to back to back. And so I started getting more specific sorts of training programs from books. Again, it's what athletes do. So I read those, got some ideas on how to do this first one. And I was hooked when I got out of the water alive. With some backstrokes, some breaststrokes, some prayer strokes, all this sort of stuff, made it through, and it was pretty amazing once I made it onto dry land. So I was hooked. And so this is my how it started, how's it going meme, so I'm hip. So where we are now at this point, I have an Excel spreadsheet that I keep track of everything. It goes on a lot more columns over, keeping track of everything that all the races I've done. These are just the triathlons and some that turned into duathlons because of poor water quality in places. You show up and there's too much E. coli. You should avoid the water. So you just bike and run. So up to this point, 56 triathlons completed. A bunch of them are shorter races and 9.5 iron distance, which are typically 70.3 miles in total distance, and then 13 are full iron distance races. And so at this point, I have qualified for the Ironman World Championship in Kona. And I earned that through the Kukui or the Legacy program, which replaced a program for a lottery where you could just give them money and they'd pull your name out of a hat. More money, $50 to get in a lottery. And they did that for like 10 years. And it turns out that they didn't have a permit for that. So it was illegal. So that shut that down. And they came up with this new program where if you did 12 races of the Ironman branded races and completed them, you could go do the World Championships eventually. That wasn't the plan originally. I was perfectly happy doing short races and just really trying to do my best at learning everything I could about doing these things that I'd never done before. Perfectly happy. I was in graduate school when we started working on my PhD. So this is something that you sort of have to, everyone has to balance. I have not earned a lot of money doing this, / spent all my money doing this. So it's just something you try to balance out there. I was perfectly happy with shorter distance races, but I eventually wanted to challenge myself. And so the first half iron distance race that we did, we lived in Kansas, but came to Iowa, took a look around and said, oh,
let's move here later.
It's Iowa. But we didn't know we were going to end up here a few years later, but did the Pigman, and it was pretty awesome, really challenging. And Tara saw that, and I mean, what did you, I think you've said that you're not doing anything longer than that at that
No,
point?
I thought it was ridiculous, and your body was not made to do those distances or put your body through that much stress. So I was a hard no.
Hard no for anything more. And that was probably okay with me because it was painful and there were people collapsing and all that sort of stuff. It was silly. I started mixing those in every year along with the shorter ones. And then I used my debate skills and was able to talk Tara. Once I finally thought maybe I could do this, I signed up for Ironman Wisconsin after some discussion of that. Back then, they sold out in the first days they opened up. So I signed up in 2006 and we went to do Wisconsin. Now, I will note that this is the first time that I was able to use my spy breaking skills to get what I wanted from her relative to Ironmans, but it wouldn't be the last time.
Mm-hmm.
So Wisconsin is a pretty awesome place to start your first Ironman. You swim out in this lake called Lake Monona, and there's amazing support from folks, lots of spectators. And when I first did it was a mass start. So everyone's 2,000 people are in the water, and then a cannon goes off, and then you, I guess, are swimming, but you're mostly climbing over people. And so there's this big helix into a parking lot. So you run out once you've completed the 2.4 miles, and you run up this helix to get to the place to change. But it's a really awesome race, cool country roads, horrible country roads, potholes, all that sort of stuff. Hills, lots of hills. But luckily for my first one, I had a lot of support. And so here's my eldest, Caden, who's now a freshman here at Simpson. Go Storm, and my mom there with the signs to help keep me going over the 140.6 miles. And is that you?
Mm-hmm.
That's Tara.
What he failed to mention was when he signed up for his very first Ironman and broke me, we later found out that I was pregnant. So he did all of the training with a pregnant and a newborn, and we went to the first Ironman with a 8-week-old.
Little known fact, she did every single mile with me on all these training events.
Yeah,
she also went on every run, swim, and bike ride.
Yeah.
So the finish line, I'm glad this was my first. It was pretty spectacular, and it's really neat in front of the Capitol. Cool run route and all that sort of stuff. And this was the only race in all my time where you could actually have someone finish with you. You could bring a loved one along. And so if you look at older videos of Ironman, you'll see that like people will be running across with a bunch of folks with them. And they sort of put the kibosh on that because people were bringing 10, 15 people with them, and people are trying to finish and they couldn't weave through them. So this was the last year, but I'm glad that Caden got to run with me. And he keeps telling me how slow I was going that day, and he forgets that he ran 50 yards and I had run a little farther. Then Tara agreed to let me do more, but it had to be every other year. So Ironman Coeur up in Idaho is the next one, and that's in 2010. That was our agreement.
Yes,
every other
year.
I'm going to stick by it. So here's what one of these starts looks like and sounds like.
It's mayhem.
That's me. But yeah, so it's a lot of folks. A lot of folks heading into the water at once, and then you try to space out and try to not get your nose kicked in and your goggles knocked off. But that water was so darn cold that it was pretty spectacular and hard to breathe. Even Canadians were wearing little booties on their feet, and so that's when I knew it was going to be cold. So this was the second one, finished up. Tara luckily had some friends from college who came up. They wanted to visit, and so they were able to come up. And this is how, in my mind,
Ryan.
this is me finishing. Everyone is going wild for me right now. Mostly my wife. All right. Changing lives. So, so in my mind, every time I finish these, I'm sprinting hard, and you can see what it actually looks like. It's always a little disappointing. It's a lot disappointing. 2 years later, we go international and we go to Cozumel in Mexico, and I start to expand my support crew, including my in-laws, and we start wearing matching clothes because that's easier to spot as you're flying by at the high speeds that I fly by. And it was spectacular, and we got to stay at a nice-ish place, and it was an awesome experience. And that's been one of the recurring themes there, is that these are getaways, vacations where we just don't worry about anything and just let go. I was a lot more tightly wound early on in those. Now, with Bryson with us and Caden with us and my in-laws, it was an awesome experience, but it was a close one. We almost lost Bryson because he was 4, and customs in Mexico is a real challenge. And so this is where we knew he was a 65-year-old man, and he just could not handle it. And that's understandable. But we all put in the time at that race. Because I'm a scientist, I thought I had to throw in some data here, especially seeing that what other folks are going to present on. It's going to be really interesting. I do keep track of everything. I do want to, sort of quantify things. And so when we got into 2013, there were some apparent things. You can see that my swim, bike, and run totals will really drop off here, in the odd years. And that is because, we had an agreement. We had an agreement. And I started thinking it might be a lot of fun to try to go to Kona. Now, the best I finish is like the top 10%. I'm usually in the top 10% to 20% in my age group, and you have to be in the top 1% to make it to the World Championship by winning your age group. So that wasn't going to happen. But here's the work I put in to try to get there in that way, and just again to try to show you sort of the process a little bit, the background. Where the way that I do the majority of my training nowadays is indoors. And that maybe sounds really weird, but boy, does it make a race seem so much fun, because there's people and outdoors, and it's exciting. You sort of forget how to ride a bike and turn your wheel. But I have a pain cave. In our basement, we have this awesome spare room that is just devoted to Tara's workout equipment, and then I have some things in there as well. And so I usually do all my working out on Zwift. At least when it's cold, I do my running there, but otherwise I do almost all my biking indoors. And what's so awesome about this is I can recreate conditions. I can make it really warm in there. I can't make it terribly cool, but I can recreate conditions like, really high humidity, or turn on the dehumidifier, make it not so bad. But even so, some of these workouts, it appears to rain inside the workout room. It's not gross to me, but I imagine it's gross to other people. And so what Zwift is, I'm not being paid by Zwift. I'd love to be paid by Zwift, but if you've never if you've ever had put your bike on a turbo trainer and just watch movies and stuff like this, I can't explain how actually engaging and interesting it is to do treadmill workouts and actually ride your bike, and it changes how hard it is based upon whatever you're interacting with. And
it's a video game for adults.
It's a video game. It's my Fortnite, and it's lots of adults, tens of thousands of adults around the world pay to have access to this app. And I've got, over the last 3.5 years, about 18,000 miles riding absolutely nowhere in my basement on this. But what it lets me do is I don't have to stop for stoplights. I don't have to get stop at Casey's and get food. I can, if I have a 5-hour ride, I just set up a cooler and I never stop riding for 5 hours. And that's pretty awesome. And if I run out of water, I can text a loved one in my house and water magically appears. It's pretty amazing. More data, just showing sort of the program that I use. I won't hit too much of this because we don't need to hit it too much, but I keep track of all my workouts. I have very specific training program that I do now, following an 80-20 principle, just saying that 80% of your workouts are going to be relatively low intensity, and then 20% are going to be higher intensity. And so I have things that I've that I've got that I can use, and luckily they all ultimately lead to me having higher fitness. That's what this fitness stuff is here. But if you're at all interested, you can contact me and I can recommend some good programs. And I use Training Peaks as an app that reminds me what I'm supposed to do. And of course, I get all this information, my watch and my bike and all sort of stuff, all talks. There's so many toys that make this super fun at this point. Yeah. All right. So at this point, we're in 2014. It's March of 2014, and we're still doing races every other year because that's the rule. So we're down in Los Cabos, so Baja California, and this was a warm one. This was a really sunny one and really hot and sunny.
Really hot.
And sunny. And my boys were there. Tara was there taking pictures, I assume. And so we were having a good old time, and it was pretty awesome. And I will tell you that I got a little bit burned in this one. There was definitely like a sun poisoning sort of thing, even with stuff on. It's hard to go in March from Iowa to Baja California and then go work out for 12 hours in the sun. And I had, so you can see these numbers, you get numbers on you and on my calf and everything. And I had the reverse of those tattoos for another 6 months because the numbers had burned. It looked like I had purposely done that. I really didn't. I always try to wear sunscreen. But I had a great cheering crew here who was helping me out at the finish line. And Bryson here after T2 and heading out on the run, Bryson smacking me on the behind to get me going. That did not last very long, but he was trying. And now, so you'll notice the last one was 2014. I think it was Tara who was like, you should do these faster. Is that you?
No,
okay.
Definitely not.
Okay. Well, while we were living in Australia, I pulled the whole, boy, I sure am getting old card. And I said, I'm never going to make it to 12 if I have to wait every 2 years. So I pulled all the strings, and Tara allowed me to sign up for another race. And at this point, I'm just trying to do a whole bunch of different ones. And so we went to Whistler, Canada, and it was gorgeous and pretty cold for a lot of it. I remember on this bike, it was a lot of mountains, and on this bike, there were points where I couldn't apply the brakes and I couldn't hold the handles. And I just sort of pointed it down the hill and went as fast as I could. And when I got to an aid station, I just asked them to feed me. So it was pretty, I didn't have the ability or the dexterity to do anything, which is probably not good, but gorgeous place once I was off the bike. Gorgeous then too. But that was pretty awesome. And so now the race is on. So every year is what's allowed. So that's pretty awesome. Thanks, T.
You're welcome.
It's so nice. So the next year we do Boulder, and this is Boulder High School in Colorado. And this is where the transition zone was, and they had this track. And one of the things that is really cool about a lot of the Ironman races is they have all kinds of things there for the family to do if the family shows up, and my family did show up for this. So extended family showed up for this. So Tara's family, her sister, and my brother-in-law and her parents showed up for this, and my parents showed up for this. So it was a whole thing. And so a lot of fun stuff. I had support. We've got new matching shirts. We're now green, and again, standing out. And so, but when you're in Colorado, green would be the way to go. So that's the start. I had a lot of support on this one.
Maybe too much.
Almost too much, but some of my most vivid and fondest memories of doing races came from this day. Just seeing the pyramid of my family was pretty spectacular, because I assume you stayed like that for hours.
Hours,
like
for lots of people, lots of practice.
They would run around to different places on this trail that ran through town, and they would show up at places. At one point, my brother-in-law Jake showed up, and I was coming around this bend, and he had taken a poster that used to be up for an award or something. It might have been junior faculty or distinguished faculty award. When we finally took that down from the building here,
it may have joined us in Boulder.
It showed up. And so I came around a corner and there was the picture of me and my brother-in-law, who just loved making me embarrassed, ran with me to when I saw this pyramid. So it was a pretty, that's not a fake smile. It's not a grimace. That is I am dying. I am lolling right now, almost rolling on the floor, but hilarious, so supportive, so much fun, so helpful. And so the reason that you're doing all these sorts of things, well, it's not the only reason, but one of the best parts of this is to hear Mike Riley, the voice of Ironman, tell you you are an Ironman. And so this was what that looks like and sounds like.
Rehmeier, 41-year-old Ryan Rehmeier. Oh, he's a happy young man.
Thanks, Mike.
You did it right. You are an Ironman.
That may be the only time they pronounced your name correctly, too.
Yeah, it may be. So you are an Ironman is sort of what everyone dreams of hearing. And Mike won't say that, Mikey and I, he won't say that except at the finish line. And so it's a big deal.
You're all choked up.
No, I'm not. But I will tell you that well, now I will get choked up.
No, don't get choked up.
Okay, so the last couple miles, when it starts occurring, so like when at my first one, when I was in the last few miles of the marathon, like it started occurring to me that like I was just going back to the capital, and like it started occurring to me that this was going to happen, and I was like super duper excited. And there was a point at 81 miles on the bike where I was like, I'm going to do this. I have enough time to do all this, and it can be really emotional because you think of all the time that you've put into it, all the help that everyone's given you to get there, and so some of these finishes are really emotional.
I know.
Look at me.
I know.
So anyway,
For everyone involved.
for everyone involved, yeah. And so again, the recurring theme here is that if I ever look like I'm physically in trouble, I'm not allowed to do these anymore.
Right.
So,
I don't like it when people can't cross the finish line on their own 2 feet. You see sometimes they're crawling across the finish line or stumbling, and I don't care for that.
So, and I wasn't allowed to get, I shouldn't need IVs.
No
either.
IVs should be needed. If you're going to do this, you should be able to do this.
It used to be that everyone just lined up for IVs after the races, but they put the kibosh on that. So I guess you have to drink during the race. So the next one, so this is the second one.
This seems to be the same year.
That's the same year? Okay, yeah, I think that's right. So now we're really proceeding quickly to try to get to 12. And I had to do this one all on my own because I guess Tara didn't want to come to Louisville.
Tara had work obligations at Simpson College.
Go Storm. And so this was a Sunday race in Louisville, Kentucky. I had to make sure I set all my stuff out correctly the night before and was ready to roll. We got to swim in the beautiful Ohio River, and then ride around through gorgeous farms and things like that. It was a really cool. Churchill Downs. Ran alongside Churchill Downs, and so really cool course. And the finish line is one of the best finish lines. It was the loudest of all the finish lines. It finishes what's called 4th Street Live, and so you basically go inside a covered overpass. I guess is a road normally, but it's like a indoor mall of some sort, and so it allows for reverberation of sound. And this is the finish, sort of panning here. And you'll see a gentleman finishing up here. And because of Zoom, you can't hear the screaming, but it's wicked loud there. Yeah, it's only picking up some of it, but it was an amazing finish. So cool. Then on to Lake Placid next year. So I had to fly through Montreal Trudeau International Airport. That was easy.
That was nothing but disaster.
We didn't get our bags, which had my bike stuff and all of our other stuff. And so Tara stayed up in Montreal while I went to check in down in Lake Placid, and I came back and got her, and we didn't have phones working.
We didn't have international phones.
So we flashed back to 1980, the 1980s for communication means. And I got to know the customs agents because I kept rolling through there repeatedly. Wasn't sketchy at all, but I had to check in or I wouldn't get to do it. This race is awesome because it happens in Lake Placid, and you get to finish on the outdoor skating, track. You also, you know, it's where the Miracle on Ice happened. There's ski jumps and everything like that. It's a really beautiful place and one of my favorite courses. And it was pretty cold, and so, but that was pretty awesome.
Yeah, that was a good one.
It's a good one. Later that year, Chattanooga. So we went there and took a picture in a garden that we weren't supposed to take pictures in. Still don't know why, but we weren't allowed to. So we did. That was a fun finish. And Chattanooga, Tara was running all over this town to
This
try
was a
to
hard
see.
one. This was a hard one. I judge his races on how easy it is for spectators to get around and follow and watch. And this was not my favorite.
But she does want to point out that we have his and hers step counts for the day, and we both got in our steps that
Yes.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I luckily got 100% of my steps I was supposed to get. You got 100%
Me too.
of yours. Good on you.
Yes.
And here is the finish for this particular race. Last video, promise. But so this is a little bit faster race because you get to swim in the Tennessee River, and depending on
Downstream.
depending on how much water they want to release from upstream, you can have quite an assistance. So so this one was 11.5 hours. You messed it up, right? Yeah.
See, I don't like it when people struggle at the end. This is an example. I don't like that.
So, but it wasn't me. It wasn't me
No,
who. Yeah.
You did okay.
Strongly, yeah. So now we're back to Boulder. All right. So now we're doing 2018 is a big year. I think there's several that year. But I had great support, beautiful place, gorgeous on the Front Range. Same courses, pretty much the same courses before. My parents are there. My family is there. Lots of support. It's awesome. Everything's great. It was hot.
It was.
I will say it was warm.
Crazy hot.
This is actual video. These aren't GIFs. These are this is video of the pavement where we were running. But luckily, I mean, I couldn't take in enough water at elevation. It was just a rough marathon shuffle. But so some days are like that, even in Boulder. But luckily, Bryson got me going through there. But I wasn't alone in the challenge of that day. And that one was a kick to the gut of thinking I could do these things pretty easily. So that was a challenge.
Oh, it's a bad one.
But it was good. Went did one with my just Wisconsin a second time. So we're going back. It's a tour of the greatest hits, and we're back through these because they're close and easy, and I can get them done. I forgot to mention before that like you get to run through Camp Randall on the run, so that's a lot of fun. There are really steep hills. There are weird people dressed up that make it feel like the Tour de France in certain areas, and that was a lot of fun. But my dad went with me to that one. I'm sure because of work commitments again.
I think this was children commitments.
Oh, the kids, my goodness. And then we get to the 12th race.
So close.
So close to the 12th race. And a sign of bad things to happen in Ironmans in the future. So this is supposed to be in Panama City Beach. And the reason we chose this one is because it's going to be on the beach and we're going to get to enjoy a vacation. I feel terrible about that because only the 4th Category 5 hurricane to ever hit the United States hit Florida a month before the race was supposed to happen. And so it went right into Panama City Beach, and obviously they couldn't have the race. I thought it was over. I was like, oh, let's wait a whole another year. Again, realizing how terrible that sounds for the people who were, dealing with all this. But there was already a half Ironman in Haines City, which is down near Orlando. So they just doubled up that course, which was boring, but it got it done. And we swam inside an alligator infested lake. Again, just stay in the middle of it, be fine. But it was good times, right?
It poured down rain. It was okay times.
It was okay times.
You finished and it was number 12.
Yep, 12. So we're there. Tara got me. You baked these amazing
Something like that.
cupcakes. You're at 12. And this is what I think about when I'm in a race. Like I think about sweets that I'm going to have afterwards. And so I get a legacy slot. That's the way this works because it's 12 races completed. You get a legacy slot. There is some fine print. One is that you actually have to do another one the year that you are going to race in the World Championship. So you're going to do 13. And they're going to charge you for the Ironman World Championships as well. And it's not like fair, but it's so expensive to go to Hawaii that what's another more of it. So got to do one more, and do that in up in Quebec at Mont Tremblant, which was gorgeous, beautiful place. One of the coolest places we've gone, I think.
Maybe my favorite.
Yeah, so kind of a little French chalet sort of skiing place, but really beautiful in the summertime. So this was fun. One, because I mean the race went relatively well, and this is the first race I think that we were so close to the finish line, like I wasn't so tired not to go back to the finish line. Went and at midnight, it's pretty spectacular when you think about people who've been going for almost 17 hours. I mean, I finished in 11 to 12 and a half hours in most races, and I have so much respect for folks who go right up to the very end of it, and they're putting in a lot of work, and so I'm really impressed. And it's motivational, it's inspirational, awesome. And you see folks putting it out there, so it's really cool. So this, I didn't think it was so bad, but you can see that I have my medal on my back, and this Tara wanted to include.
I caught him behind a bus.
I was just
thinking about the race.
Thinking about the race and trying to get the demons out of my belly. So the hardest part, I think, of these races is sort of making the nutrition work while you're working out for 12 hours, because you've got to take on calories, but your body doesn't want to because the blood is in your muscles and not your gut. So it's a real challenge. And at some point, you just have to boot and rally. So there we are. Sorry to include that, but there's not much, you can't really tell what's going on there.
No.
So made it. All right. So I do consider, so if you tell someone you're going to do an Ironman, most folks think of simply the World Championships, the Kona, the Hawaii one. But I considered myself an Ironman once I did one. It's a point of debate among the people who have too much time to think about things. So ultimately, I wanted to go to the World Championship, and I qualified. And I actually had this image that I printed for my workout room to remind myself why you're putting in the work. And so October 10th, 2020 was when I was due to go. That did not happen. 2020, it feels like there was something going on. Was that homecoming? What did you have? You had something.
There was something.
We couldn't go. I guess there was a pandemic. And so that was obviously postponed. So they moved it to February of 2021. And we know that things were not spectacular yet around the globe, in particular in Hawaii. So that didn't happen. They then were like, hey, we're going to give you a brand new sponsor, a whole new logo, and we're going to do this October 9th, 2021. I don't really look like I've just done an Ironman. And so that also got canceled because Hawaii had, additional, just we're trying to get their hand, get ahead of things, and they just it's obviously still a problem in Hawaii, and so we're going to let you go in February of 2022. So that was the next one, and then that was changed, and then they were like, let's just get this done. If you want to do the World Championships, say you did it, would you like to go to Utah? Because in Utah you can race anytime you want because there's no pandemic. But that's not what I'm here for. So they said, okay, we're going to let you do it in Hawaii in October when it normally is. And so I will hopefully be going there next year. But I've been told this before. So sixth time may be the charm, though. And so I will work towards that. Last slide. And so I also mentioned in like the paragraph, the how and the why. That was a lot of the how and what we did. But the why, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why I did this sort of thing. But among them is, part of it is to try to be a good role model for my kids, is the most cliche way to talk about it. But I really actually enjoy doing this. And I wanted to, demonstrate that you can have balance in your life. And I'd like to have balance in my life. And so that was the idea behind this. Plus, it's just really enjoyable. And I've had a lot of really good ideas, well, for me, when I'm out on a bike ride or a run or just not thinking about work type of stuff. So that's been pretty awesome. And it's been really cool. I mean, my boys, I don't expect them to do these sorts of things ever down the road. They need to find something that they like. And that's what I really hope, is that they figure out that, physical activity can be a part of, an enjoyable life, if that's something you want to do. They did a triathlon in Australia. Both of them that the three of us did. And so they're way ahead of me on that. I was in my late 20s when I started doing any races at all. No, it's like 27 then. And so now, I mean, I wouldn't have run cross country, and both boys have now run cross country. Pretty amazing. And so And lastly, I have so many thanks to give.
No.
We won't get all mushy on this, but obviously I can't do these things unless I have the emotional support and the willingness of everyone to sort of be like, yes, go do your workouts. But I do just disappear and people seem not to mind that I'm down in the basement, but I am close and I'm safe. I'm not getting hit by cars and that sort of thing. So I am very thankful also for just support of the rest of my family and who have come to these races or who put up with me having to go work out when I need to stay on task. And then also I have awesome colleagues here at Simpson who've been really supportive of me. No, not students.
Yes, students have to.
Students as well, yeah, who have put up with, sort of my fact that I am trying to do a lot of things simultaneously. So if I ever didn't get back an email to you,
he's probably on his bike.
I might have been on my bike, and if I were to try to type it, it'd be really sweaty. So I apologize for that. But that's what we have right here. It looks like there are, couldn't see the questions, but there's a few questions that maybe we could hit on.
There are a few questions coming in, and feel free to get those into the question and answer as well. The first one that came in was, have you ever had an injury setback, and how did you deal with that?
I've been really lucky, and I think part of that has to do with the fact that with triathlon, you get to do a lot. I never do a ton of volume. You do a little bit of everything, and since swimming's a part of that, that's a nice low impact thing. I have had metatarsalgia in my feet when in like the years where I was doing 3 Ironmans. Go
Imagine
figure.
that.
A little bit of nervous irritations there. I had knee issues when running a little bit before I switched to 0 drop shoes or low drop shoes when I was running in Nikes and Asics. Sorry, they have drops, heel to toe drops of 10 to 12 millimeters. When I started going down to 0, all those injuries went away and all that pain went away. Another plug for Ultra and Hoka One One, who again I'm not sponsored by, but sure would appreciate that. But that's how I was able to avoid a lot of that. Yeah.
Looks like a question came in that is, how easy is it to get around Cozumel? I'm guessing that's possibly for you, Tara.
We were in a pretty good location for that one, actually. We just kind of set up camp, and that would had the races for us that are nice are the ones that go in loops, because then you can just kind of stay in one spot and once or twice, sometimes 3 times. I think that was actually a 3 loop. And now, I mean, he's been doing these long enough. Now they have apps where you can track him and literally see his location wherever he is. And so you plan where you need to be and when. And the app is awesome.
You can come out and act like, oh, we've been here the whole time, when instead you've been back in the
It doesn't
hotel.
matter what we've been doing between. Yeah.
I would much rather actually be racing than waiting for.
Oh, it's a long day,
someone.
people.
It's such a long day.
day.
At least I feel like I'm, doing something. Yeah, yeah.
All right, another one for you, Tara, is what is the best part of being a spouse of an Ironman, and what is the worst part?
There's lots of best part. I mean, a cheesy answer is this is one of the things that makes Ryan happy, and you like to have your family that's happy and content doing what they like to do. It keeps, we've gotten to go to some fabulous locations that I don't know if Lake Placid would have been one of the places I would have chosen to vacation, but some of them we've been able to do on our own. We've taken the boys to those that we could. So great locations. And obviously I'm proud when Ryan competes and finishes, but like he said, it is, I don't know, it just kind of puts things into perspective when you see all of the thousands of people. And then I know how hard they've worked to get to that point, and then to watch them finish, it's pretty remarkable. Not so much, it takes a lot of time.
Yep,
it takes
sure.
a lot of time. I know there's another question about how long, but I mean, his long rides will be 5 or 6 hours on a Saturday or a Sunday. So we lose him for a little bit during peak season, but like he said, he's just in the basement. We could go check on him. But it's a time commitment for sure.
Sounds great. What has it been like mentally to wait for your competition in Kona to finally take place? Has it been harder to train with the date continually being pushed back or even being unknown?
Yes.
I can answer that one for them.
Yeah, no, it's tricky because I realize that the silliness of what I'm doing and all this means nothing to, what people have had to sacrifice and what people have lost over the last, year and a half or so. So I feel badly when I'm like, oh my gosh, this is such a hassle. But this is my journey, and I put a lot of time into this, and it's been really hard to get back into a 26-week training block and feel like, yeah, this is actually going to happen. And so so it's hard to get up and get rolling again. Plus, I will say that now in my late 40s, it's harder to get to lose the winter weight, the COVID weight, and just be like, oh my gosh, just shed it the way that I used to be able to do. And that's a little frustrating, but I really don't. I do, but I don't worry about what I look like. I'm more like,
you like to have a goal.
Can I do what I need to do, and can I do the best that I can do? And if that looks a little bit different shape than it has been in the past, totally.
But you like to have a goal.
Totally
you like
fine.
to have a date.
I have to have a date, and I have to know the steps to get there, and then I can just check off that I've done all those. And then I know when I get to the line, the start line, that just enjoy it, and because it's the frosting on top of the cake, because like just getting there, I really enjoy the training. I mean, I hope that my boys, I hope everyone figures out something they enjoy doing. I look forward to working out for hours in my basement, going nowhere. Like, that may be weird, but like, you can communicate with other folks around the world. That's my social media, is like chatting with folks while we're racing and stuff like that.
Did I do that?
You did that. It's okay.
My bad.
It's all right.
Ryan, what are you like before the races? Are you nervous, excited? And also, how about after the race? How long does it take to recover and get back to kind of your normal self?
The first couple races, I was so scared that I wouldn't finish them, and we put all this time into it. I have all these people there, and you see a lot of people who don't finish. I mean, honestly, there's people who don't make it out of the water, and there's cutoffs on time. And so I was scared to death I was going to miss cutoffs, or I would crash, or I would not.
Bike trouble.
I had bike trouble. All these sorts of things worried me a whole lot in the first few. And I was a tense cookie for before races. I'm not like that anymore. I think
Not as much.
I'm not as much like that anymore. And so I think I'm more relaxed, because I know that, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. So and then the races are pretty challenging. I push it as hard as I can, honestly. But they don't hurt nearly as bad in the days afterwards like they did the first couple days. First couple races, I thought I got hit by a truck the next day. I could barely get out of the bed. And it's a lot different now, I think. And I think it's just lots of years of practice. But I don't run for at least a week. I do active recovery every day, whether that's swimming or getting good walk in or something like that. I don't want to be on a seat of a bike anytime real soon, but once I feel ready to do that again, I'll do that. But just active recovery. So it takes a few days, and I'll walk around and I'm just depleted going up a step, set of steps, like I'm exhausted. I'm like, why is that? Like, there's nothing in your muscles to do those simple things anymore.
One of our guests says Ironman Des Moines will be his first full Ironman. Will you be racing in that as well?
Absolutely. Yeah, I was pretty stoked to hear that they made it into a full Ironman. So was able to do the half this last year, well, sort of half with the storms and everything. But I'm really looking forward to Des Moines be able to highlight the cool venues we have. And the bike should be, as long as there's no big storms right before, it's a really nice ride. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And you should, reach out to me. I'd be happy to, share ideas with you. It'd be a great start. A lot of good support downtown too.
Hey, Andy, we should figure out a way to find Simpson connections that are doing it, and have a cheering squad, so we know all it. Because on this little app that I love so much, you can look up anybody and see, how they're doing and where they are. So if we know other people that have Simpson connections, if we're out there for 12 hours, we're going to cheer for as many people as we can.
Up to 17 hours.
Right.
Up to 17 hours. Yeah.
I'll stay late.
Yeah.
We can definitely do that. All right, here's a good question. How many shoes do you go through in a year, Ryan?
A lot.
I don't have a lot of vices though, but I do have a frequent buyer program. The people at Roadrunner Sports I get my money's worth on the frequent buyer program on those. So it depends. I mean, I don't run crazy amounts of mile. I mean, my biggest year is 900 miles of running. I mean, which for anyone who just trains like marathons and stuff, that's not much to folks. And I'm so light on my feet. I don't use very much of the tread is the other part of that. I probably go through, I will 250 to 300 miles on them before I don't let them go too soft because I want to save my knees. So I'm in 3 to 4 pairs per year. I usually alternate some simultaneously to keep the mileage down.
Sounds good. We have time for just a few more questions. One of them is a quick one. What's your favorite, running, biking, or swimming?
They all have great value. They're all fun. Swimming, I'm most happy with the fact that I can swim now, and it has opened up all kinds of more comfort in the water. Biking's a lot of fun, but there's no better feeling than handing off your bike after 112 miles of riding it. It's the only thing that makes you want to go run a marathon, because you and that seat have become one. And so I could bike most every day, and that's really enjoyable. But on a race day, I think swimming is usually about the most fun. Yeah.
I'm surprised by that. That's neat.
Yeah.
Just a couple more. How many hours of training do you usually put in per day during your peak training time?
Yep. So peak training time, when I'm at the end when I'm in the last periodization block, it's about 16 to 18 hours per week. And so it's, again, not huge, but it is, I guess that's 3 hours a day, 6 days of the week. But so yeah, it gets pretty big, but most of those, it's about
1 to 2 hours typically during the week,
Mhm.
and then larger chunks on the
Mhm.
weekend.
And so there'll be 2 workouts per day, an hour to hour and a half in those every day. And then there are, and then the long run and ride on the weekend. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of brick workouts. So riding and then running immediately afterwards. And that's the most important thing I can emphasize. If you are doing triathlon, is that you work on those brick workouts where you run right after you bike. Even if it's a short run, it will really help you out when you have to do that in a race.
All right. And the final question, what are your plans after Hawaii?
Yes. What are your plans after Hawaii?
Well, who knows how long I have to think about that. It could be in 2022. I'd figure that out. I've said that, this will be the end of it, but it probably won't be the end of it. You know better than that.
Yeah.
I really enjoy being able to do this, and I enjoy sort of the side effects it has. Like today, I was out as the sun came up, out running trap lines for small mammals for research, and like I can do that. I can run around with 30 pounds of traps and stuff like that, and I think that's probably a little abnormal for people my age, and so I want to keep doing that for as long as possible, just because it has these benefits where I just feel good when I'm training.
The triathlon community is really a fun group too. Everybody, it's one of the few sporting events where everybody supports everybody.
Mhm.
Obviously, we're there to watch typically 1 or 2 people, but there's so much
Mhm.
support, and you
Mhm.
have full-on conversations with people while you're running, and
A lot of good karma going around. And so, I
yeah.
mean, it's a good place to like really think about how, expressing gratitude for like the fact that we get to do these things, and the fact that, there's so many people around the world who have so many more concerns, and the fact that we have the time to do this and the ability to do this. I have so much gratitude for that. It brings me a lot of joy. So I'll probably keep doing this. Not 3 Ironmans a year.
No, that'd be
but
crazy.
It'd be fun to go, see some more places maybe.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both very, very much for being a part of this. Definitely a very cool story, and a unique one as well. And we're proud to have you both here at Simpson. But with that, we'll conclude today. And I definitely encourage any of our guests to reach out to me with any other questions, or if you do want to connect, especially if you are planning on doing Ironmans or triathlons in the future. And so we can definitely connect and bring that Simpson triathlon community together.
Great.
Thank you all, and have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.